All right, guys, welcome back to the Ignite podcast, Coach's Corner. I'm your host, Alex, and I'm here with you got Josh and Kristian, coaches on the Ignite platform in here today, and we're actually talking about nutrition. We're going to talk about, I was an ex-low-fat diet survivor. That is actually true. That's pretty funny. I'm here with two absolute legends, Kristian and Josh. So this one's going to get spicy. Kristian, welcome, man. What's going on with you?
What's up, everyone? Kristian here. I'm fired up for this one. Fats get a bad rap, but today we're clearing the air and bringing the science.
Yeah. What's up, Coach Josh? How you doing? Thanks, Kristian.
Yeah, Josh here. Whether you're somebody that might be curious about the ketogenic diet, somebody that might be a little bit more on the fat phobic side, not sure what to eat, what's good or what's bad, or somewhere in between, this episode is going to be a good one for you. We'll be diving into how these healthy fats are able to play a massive role in our hormone health.
For sure. So like today, we're going to cover like what makes a fat healthy or unhealthy, why fats matter for testosterone, estrogen, thyroid, cortisol, and more. And then the seed oil debate, the ever debatable seed oil. Are they toxic or just misunderstood? And yes, we're going to do of course, at the end, we always do our Q&As. We clear up the common confusion that people have out there.
This one's stacked with value. Take notes, save it, and send it to your friends who still think fat equals bad.
Yeah, let's kick this one off, fellas.
All right, cool. Kristian, so we'll start with our first section here, Fats 101. What are healthy fats?
All right, let's get some definitions on board. Not all fats are created equal. Here's what we're working with. Saturated fats, found in things like red meat, eggs, butter, and coconut oil, demonized in the past, but are actually essential in moderation for hormone production. Monounsaturated fats, think avocados, olive oil, macadamia nuts. These are metabolic gold. Polyunsaturated fats, omega-3s and omega-6, critical, but the ratio is everything. Trans fats, these are the real villains, artificial, inflammatory, and banned in most countries for a reason. Yet, just to go back to the polyunsaturated fats, I do think that ratio is critical for a lot of people because foods like peanut butter are usually typically high in omega-6 fatty acids, and you want to even those out with more omega-3s in your diet.
Yeah, 100%, man. Having that balance is crucial, right? And it's crazy what you said about trans fats. That's so wild. That banned in most countries, right? We're all here in the U.S. We might have people listening all over, but we're here in the U.S. of A. right now, and a lot of our foods are banned in other countries, which is just wild.
Mm-hmm.
It's just wild. So hopefully we catch up in that regard when it comes to our overall health and diets.
Just to be clear too, fellas, I think it's important to remember that most of the confusion is because people lump so many of these types of fats together. Remember that not all fat is created equal, but it doesn't mean that all fats are bad. The key is to making sure that we understand what role or what function, each individual fat plays on our body or in our body.
Yeah, you're 100% correct there. Josh nailed it, So like, think of like the MUFAs, right? The monosaturated fats or the PUFAs, the polysaturated fats. Especially omega-3s, they help reduce LDL cholesterol and inflammation, both which support hormonal and metabolic and cardiovascular health. Excuse me. So, what do you think, Kristian?
Let's take that foundation and move it into good stuff. How fats are literally building the blocks of your hormones. Yeah, fat is really essential for hormone production. In fact, a lot of vegans I heard can have lower testosterone levels because they're not consuming the correct fats in their diet.
Yeah, it's wild, right? So that plays a crucial role. And I think you touched on it earlier too. Is like not everyone kind of lumps it in together, and not everyone kind of gets that. Oh, all fats are bad. I need to avoid fat because they do lump in the trans fats, the saturated fats, the monosaturated. They lump them all together, and they look at them like the enemy. And that's hopefully we can clear that all up today, right? So let's talk about in like section 2 here. Now that we know what types of fats there are. Let's talk about fats and hormone production, right? So here's the deal. Like hormones don't just show up out of nowhere. They're made from your cholesterol. That's right. Your hormones are made from your cholesterol. The stuff people have been scared of for decades. Okay.
Cholesterol is the precursor to your steroid hormones, testosterone, estrogen, cortisol, DHEA, you name it, and you get it from saturated and monounsaturated fats.
Yeah, I think it's important to, really, get away from scrolling through social media and just seeing a headline and running with it, which I'm guilty of myself. I think it's
Yeah.
important to remember that there's lots of research out there that supports exactly what it is that we're talking about. There's a great study that I found here by Volek and Kramer from 2000. This study found that men eating higher fat diets, especially with adequate saturated fat, which tends to be that fat that really, really is looked at as bad.
Hmm.
Saturated fat had a significantly higher level of testosterone in these men from this study.
Right on, man. Yeah, no, that's true. Red meat, right? Everyone looks at it like the enemy, but it's a good amount of saturated fats in there, dude. But yeah, I guess there's other drawbacks and pros and cons. So, and it's not just a dude thing, right? Like women need healthy fat intake to support estrogen, progesterone. I can't ever say that word correctly. Progesterone and thyroid hormone production, right? So low fats diets wreck that balance, right? So they really do. Like you'll see that. I think Kristian mentioned it before. Like, and we're not saying all vegans, right? They get different fats, from different sources and stuff. But you do find people that go on different types of diets, that low fat diet, and like they just don't look healthy. Their testosterone's
Right.
bomb. Or they're not their testosterone. Their hormones are bombed in general. Like they're tired. They're lethargic. Like there's a lot of things we'll kind of get into, right? So definitely I've seen it firsthand, and it's important for when you're working with clients, guys, too, to understand what kind of diet. If you're not in charge of their diet or necessarily doing it for them, definitely when you're working with clients as a trainer, you want to know what type of diet your clients are on. So like how hard they can go. Because people that aren't eating fats, and we have another episode on carbs and things like that, are carbs the enemy? It really affects what type of training they're capable of too at certain times, right? So anyways, what do you think, Kristian? Let's keep moving forward. I tend to ramble sometimes.
No, you're good. Also, don't forget vitamins A, D, E, and K, fat soluble and hormone critical. If you're not eating enough fat, you're not absorbing them properly. Yeah, actually, eggs can cover a lot of these vitamins and overall base for your hormone support.
Yeah, 100%. You faded out there a little bit, but yeah, eggs, dude. Like it's a nature's multivitamin, right? Like it covered like A, D, E, K, all there, and your whole egg, right? Not just the egg whites, but the egg itself, the whole egg. Um, yeah, so let's talk about that. Let's talk a little bit about um, the different vitamins or the omegas that we kind of get, about inflammation and hormones and the effect on that. What do you think, Josh? You just kick us off on this one.
Yeah, and I want to mention something too in regards to eggs. I think, as we get away from fats and we look at these, you mentioned it being, really just a powerhouse food full of nutrients. Eggs are what is also referred to as a perfect protein, which means it contains all essential, non-essential amino acids.
Right.
And it tends to get a bad rap out there. So just wanted to give you my 2 cents on eggs there. But
Yeah.
next up, omega threes. Omega 3s, these are really an anti inflammatory powerhouse. They do so many things in our bodies, and it's important to remember, especially their ability to support insulin sensitivity, our adrenal health, and cortisol regulation, which is incredibly important for us as humans, to be able to function optimally, that our endocrine systems are working in function and, at a place that is, helps us with our stress levels, our energy levels, really, you name it.
Yeah. 100%, Josh. And yeah, like we could probably have a whole episode on just like omega threes, or even just eggs for that matter. We probably should do an episode on eggs one of these days. But anyways, I know this firsthand, guys. I'll open up to you guys. So like omega threes are key for your thyroid health too. Like so, I was diagnosed with hypothyroidism when I was a young man, like 17. And I've been taking a little levothyroxine or a little Synthroid like every morning since. Um, and it's one of those progressive things. And 9 out of 10 people that have hypothyroidism have Hashimoto's, right? Is a autoimmune disorder. Um, and it's basically you're lacking that T4 and the T3 production for your thyroid. And omega 3s, they help convert that, right? So I take omegas like daily. I do eat like, fish and salmon and other things of that nature that are high in omega 3s, but also I take like, that's one of the supplements I could recommend to everybody is like for anti-inflammatory purposes, to convert your T4 into T3, which is your active thyroid hormone. Without that, your energy will tank. And I've felt that. I've seen that. I've experienced that firsthand. But omega 3s, I can't express how crucial they are to me in my life. And then just for the general person, right? How beneficial they can be, you know? What do you
But the
think, Kristian?
problem, our
Yeah.
diets are overloaded with omega-6 fats. We're
Right.
talking 16-to-1 ratio omega-6 to omega-3 ratios when the optimal amount is more like 2-to-1. Yeah, I think a big issue with this is because the ocean, like fish that come out of the ocean, are so high in mercury that people have been told not to eat tuna or even other types of fish that come out of the ocean. And so I think if they did up their fish consumption, that ratio would be a lot more healthy and lower their inflammatory levels.
Yeah, that's an interesting take on it for sure, bro. Like, I think that's people are kind of steered away from fish, especially the bigger fish, right? Like you said, tuna and some of the larger fish out there and the mercury levels. People like, yeah, they really steer away. But that's a pretty gnarly ratio, 16-to-1, right? When it should be more like a 2-to-1. So, yeah, guys, check out the supplements, omega 3s, if you're not getting that enough, omega 3 fatties. Definitely, there's great fish oil, krill oil, things like that you can get that from. What do you think, Josh?
Yeah, it might also be important for those that are listening to, really consider some supplementation of their omegas. It might be important or something that you write down at your next physical or doctor checkup just to see what they might recommend you.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, the imbalance of these omegas really can cause systemic inflammation in the body. And, we run into issues like estrogen dominance or insulin resistance. And
Yeah.
really, like you were talking about earlier, running into issues like hypo or hyperthyroidism, which is just an inability for our thyroid to function the
Yeah.
way it's supposed to. And, thyroid plays a huge factor in our metabolic health.
Oh yeah.
Especially when people are considering or, using the infamous "I have a slow metabolism" or "you have a fast metabolism." I
Yeah.
think the reality is that we just need to check, what we're, what type of information we're giving to our cells.
Yeah.
And so much of that comes from our nutrition and, our ability to supplement things that we might, have an overconsumption of or an underconsumption of.
That's so funny, man. That's so true. Because like I always have that debate and that laugh with people when people tell me, "Oh, I got a slow metabolism." I'm like, no, you don't, man. I know what it means to have a slow metabolism. Like unless you like seriously like have hyper, which is like a very fast metabolism, or a hypo, thyroid issue. It's most people. It can be regulated through their diet, right? Which is
Right.
huge.
Right.
It's
Well, so
huge.
many people are breaking their metabolism because they're not
Exactly.
paying attention to, their body's signs, whether that's, high cholesterol or
Yeah.
high blood pressure. I mean, it's like, hey man, here's your check engine light in your car. Like you should probably take that in and get it checked out.
Yeah, no, 100%, man. And that brings us kind of into our next like controversial topic, right? So it's like right into the war zone, so to say. Seed oils, right? So like seed oils, are they helpful or are they harmful? What do you think, Kristian?
All right, let's talk seed oils. Canola, soybeans, sunflower, these are everywhere, but they are actually toxic. But are they actually toxic or is it social media hype? So I've heard some people, I hate to call out names, but Paul Saladino is probably the most popular one out there who's
Yeah,
critical of seed oils.
yeah,
Some people, including him, have referred to them as industrial lubricant, like it helps machines function properly. I'm not
right.
too sure about that. I mean, there might be some truth behind it, but I'm looking forward to looking into this topic.
Yeah, we could definitely dive into this one too a little bit more, right? And we probably will end up having an episode on this. We will do one, we could talk about whatever the heck we want, right? So, yeah, dude, it's both side. It's both, right? Like, and Paul Saladino, a carnivore MD, right? Like, I love watching his stuff, and he's living the life out in like Costa Rica, I think, somewhere, So
Yep.
he's living this pretty awesome life, and good on him for doing that. And he did what he had to do to figure out his own autoimmune, right, disorder, and what kind of diet he was having, and I think that's where he went down this path of like seed oils and whole foods and um, anyways, let's not talk too much about that. But like the science, our seed oils are high in omega 6. That's not they're not evil by default, but when they're highly processed and oxidized, like most are, they can damage cells and disrupt hormones. Like bottom line, so it's not something we want to be putting into our body at all, or definitely in moderation. And unfortunately, it's a more cost effective oil for the food industry, at least in the U.S. So it's massively produced, right? And it's like what you find all of your French fries and most of your restaurants are going to be using seed oils to cook in their products. So that's where we get that high omega 6 and that totally whacked out ratio of a 16-to-1 rather than a 2-to-1. Is partially because of the seed oils. So what do you think, Josh?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, damaged cells and disrupted hormones don't sound very ideal.
No.
Especially when it comes to having alternative options available.
Right.
It's important, as we're talking about insulin resistance and kind of disrupting our endocrine system, which, that might be a fancy word for some people that are listening, but that's your hormones. We're talking directly about your hormones. And when our hormones and our cells are dealing with chronic inflammation, just because of food choices, we have to start to look to the alternative.
Yeah.
These highly processed oils aren't natural, and they produce things like free radicals, which are these things that are causing these issues and these disruptions to our cells and to our hormones.
Right on. Thank you, dude. Thank you for breaking that down for everybody, and I hope you guys listen. It's really educated, important stuff that Josh is spewing out there. All of us, Kristian and myself. Um, yeah, So, what do you think? Like, what do you think, Kristian? Like, what are different? Like, can small amounts be okay? What do you think about that?
Cold pressed versions in small amounts can be okay. The issue isn't the oil itself; it's how much you're eating and how it's how it's processed. Yeah, I think at the end of the day, overeating and having a diet that's too high in calories is the main driver of the unhealthiness and obesity rate in this country. But at the same time, if companies could switch from seed oils to beef tallow, not only would it probably be slightly healthier, but the food might actually taste better as well. I know that's not everything, but taste does make food more enjoyable.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, if we can look past the almighty dollar and the whole cost effectiveness and all that shit, and like actually work like, okay, man, it may be saving you $1 or even $100 or $1,000, but if it's putting people's health, like there's no price on that. If they're putting their health at risk, right? There's no price on that in my eyes, but not to everybody, right? So, yeah, I think you're right. In small amounts, it can be okay, but the issue is really like how much, right? Um, and I guess don't be terrified of all seed oils, but don't make it your daily driver. Like, you're eating French fries every day, like shit like that, that are just drenched in seed oils, like canola oil, things like that. It's not gonna be beneficial. Prioritize your whole foods, your fat sources, and treat processed foods with caution, like very much so. Yeah, let's keep moving on. Let's go on to myths and mistakes in a low-fat diet. The people that fall out, right? So I've been victim of that before. Like, okay, I'm gonna try this super low-fat diet. High protein, high carbs. I've done that whole route. I've done the opposite: all protein, all fats. You got to find your own balance and what works for your body. But like, what do you think, Josh? Like, what do you think about a low-fat diet fallout?
I think, like you, I've fallen into it myself. I think we flash back to the 80s, the 90s, and I mean, really, all the way up today. We're living in this
Yeah,
time where, we're not eating a whole balanced. I hate the word diet, but we're not living like humans, right? We're kind of eating like children. We're eating things out of packages. We're
yeah,
eating foods that are, I mean, essentially dead,
yeah,
right? I mean, whether it's a plant, that's put into a package, I mean, they have to kill the plant in order to,
yeah,
to make it.
yeah,
Fat free though is, I think it's like any diet or any fad that
mm,
it was something that people fell for. And, now with new research and, our ability to use the internet, I think that we have the ability to go and we, discover that, you know, that might have been a little bit of a little bit of BS.
Yeah, 100%. Especially like the processes it has to go to strip things of their fat at times, dude. All the different chemicals and things that they use, like it's really not good for you. It's really not. Yeah, and it is BS. And I've fallen into it too, like fat free. I need to avoid fat, like fat free everything, and it's not great. Yeah, man. What do you think, Kristian? What do you think on that?
The 80s and 90s, that era led to an explosion in metabolic dysfunction and hormonal collapse, especially for women. Irregular
Yeah,
cycles, thyroid issues, and mood swings. Yeah, once again, fat gets a bad rap, but you're going to consume calories from somewhere. So if you have a low fat diet, you might end up consuming more sugar and more carbohydrates, which could lead to even more caloric consumption than what you were consuming previously on a higher fat diet.
yeah, for sure, man. And like, yeah, I remember like that's I mean, I'm a '90s kid, right? Like I was born in the '80s, grew up in the '90s type thing. So I was still pretty young at that time. But I remember, dude, like all the fat free stuff, and I remember the ads on TV, and definitely targeted like my mom. She was all about fat free stuff like that. So, but guys, they weren't necessarily spared either. Low fat equals low testosterone. And again, we talk about like at the very top, like from this you can get brain fog, lower energy, poor recovery, bottomed out libido. It's really not ideal. Um, when we talk there at the top, what we talk about where it was like fats themselves, like people have a misconception on fat. It plays a massive role in your hormone health, right? So if you're taking that out, it's going to really bring your testosterone product as a guy, your hormones as a guy, just to a halt. And that's what we want to kind of avoid, especially us in the fitness realm, right? And out there lifting weights and doing all this stuff. So, yeah. What do you think,
Yeah,
Joshua?
yeah. I mean, your body literally is put into shock, into panic. Making sure that if our fat gets too low, our cortisol is going to shoot way up. Which we were talking about hormones earlier, but it's making sure that our hormones are regulated, and working at that proper level, and not at an extreme.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. 100%. Um, cool. Well, let's talk about here. Let's how to eat fats for better hormones. All right. So we've talked a lot of the negative aspects, like what to avoid and what not to do, right? A little bit, and we talked about what fats are in general. But let's talk some strategy. Kristian, kick us off, man.
All right, let's talk strategy. Here's how to eat fats like a pro for hormone optimization. Aim for 25 to 35% of calories from fat. Prioritize whole sources like avocados, extra virgin olive oil, fatty fish, salmon, or sardines, grass fed meats, and pasture raised eggs, nuts and seeds, some coconut oil for variety. Avoid trans fats, limit overly processed seed oils, and consider an omega-3 supplement if needed. Yeah, I think the omega-3 supplement is huge. If you don't like eating fish, that can really even out your ratio for you.
Yeah. What's
Yeah,
your
I
take?
think it's also important to remember that we pair our fats with protein and fiber, just making sure, talking about insulin resistance a little bit ago, just making sure that we keep our blood sugar stable, and really optimize our ability to support our health, our gut health, excuse me.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. And I think the other thing to add in there, guys, is like just for everybody listening. I know you guys probably already know this, but the fats in your diet, right? They equate to 9 grams. Excuse me, nine. Yeah, it's nine calories.
Calories per gram.
Calories. Thank you, per gram. Thank you. I was like searching for that. So 9 calories per gram. So if you're looking at 25 to 35%, they have a standard 2,000 calorie diet. On the low end, right, you're going to be looking at what is that? About 500 of your calories on a 2,000 calorie diet. On the very low end, 25%. We'll do that math. You're looking at about 500 of your calories coming from fat source, right? Then you would take that 500, divide it by 9, and that's going to get you the approximate grams that you're looking for. I don't have a calculator in front of me, but it's probably like 30 grams or something. No, more than that. It's what, 40, 50 grams, 50 times 9, 450. Yeah. So it's like 54 grams, right? Worth of fat. So that's how you would equate that, guys. If you're looking to figure out, okay, what's 25 to 35%, figure out how many your daily caloric intake is. figure out that percentage, and then you can find the grams that way. And it's not about extremes. It's about precision and quality. When your fats are dialed in, your hormones follow suit. Okay. So let's do a couple Q&A questions. Here's the first question. Does saturated fat increase testosterone? Remember, saturated fat, right? No, we're not talking trans fat. That's what we want to stay away from. And yes, moderate intake supports cholesterol, which is the building block of testosterone. But balance matters. Don't just eat bacon and call it a day. Pair it with greens, fiber, and quality and carbs. That's what Josh just really kind of went over for us. Here's the second question for Kristian. Are omega-6 fats always bad?
Nope, the body needs them for cell production, but when they outweigh omega-3s by 10 to 1 or more, you're heading into inflammation territory. Balance is everything. Yeah, I think for me, food that I love to consume that's also pretty high in microplastics, but also high in omega-6 fatty acids is peanut butter. So that's one of my downfalls. I can't stay away from peanut butter.
I hear you, man. Peanut butter's tough, dude. It's tough, but yeah, people pack. If you're in a bulk, it's great, But if you're not, you can pack on the calories.
Yeah, it'll hurt you.
All right, cool. Question number 3 here for Josh. What's the best fat for thyroid health?
All right. So when it comes to thyroid health, fatty fish is probably going to be your best bet. Mostly because of its omega-3 content. Another option you can add to things like mixing in a salad dressing, or even using as a marinade for your food is olive oil. It's a great monosaturated fat, and it supports your cellular health, and it can also be beneficial when it comes to your body's ability to absorb vitamins properly.
Right on, man. Yeah, I agree with that. And again, that's something I've dealt with personally, right? Is that thyroid damn issue, and omega-3s does seem to help regulate that T4 to T3 or T3 and T4, kind of the conversion there.
Yeah. And another thing to consider too is, it's I think we tend to get into these battles of what fish is good and what fish is bad. I think it's just important to remember that, most of us know what foods are good for us and what foods are bad for us. And if you're eating fish, just try to make sure it's, something that you buy in the store, whether that's salmon or sardines, and try to exclude the fish and chips at the local bar,
Right.
with the adult soda that you're adding with it as well. I think it's important that we,
Yeah.
we call out the difference.
Yeah, please. That's a great point. Yeah, because people are going to hear this and be like, yeah, man, they said to eat a lot more fish. So they're fucking over there having their fried fish over at the bar, fish and chips, Yeah, I can just see it happening. Like, those guys told me. But yeah, no, Josh is spot on. Like, what type of fish, how it's prepared is kind of crucial too, right? So, good point there. So yeah, let's just kind of wrap it up. I think that was a great episode. I hope everybody got something. All you guys listening out there, whether you're a coach, you're an athlete, you're someone just getting into this, you're interested in nutrition, whatnot. Thanks for listening. Remember, fats aren't the enemy. They're actually a secret weapon, especially for your hormones. All right. So everyone talks about cholesterol and bad cholesterol. This cholesterol are your hormones, right? That's how your hormones are produced and how you can excel. So what do you think, Chris? Thanks everybody.
Whether it's testosterone, thyroid, estrogen, or cortisol, your fat intake determines how well they function. So don't fear fat, use it wisely. Yeah, it's an essential nutrient. I know it's 9 calories per gram, but if you play it smart and you eat the right kinds of fat, it's only going to benefit you.
100%. Yeah. How about you, Josh?
Yeah, I think it's important to make sure that we stay intentional. I think we're all out there doing our best, and there is a lot of dogma surrounding nutrition and fitness, or whatever the topic might be. But, when it comes to food, I think, if we think a little bit about it, I think we know what foods are good for us and what foods are bad for us. And, I think it's just important that we just eat more of the foods that we know are good for us. And when it does come to, questioning your mainstream, advocates out there, I think it's important to find ones that you trust and, listen to them and reach out to them and, At the end of the day, I think, each individual is their own best advocate. So just, do your best. If you have questions, there's all sorts of resources out there.
Yeah, for sure. Appreciate it, guys. Thanks for being on the episode today. And then real quick, so Kristian, where can we find you? Where can the listeners find you if they want to check out your stuff online or reach you?
On TikTok, my username is KrisYoung02. That's actually KrisYoung02. And then on Instagram, my username is Chris_Young.
Perfect. And how about you, Josh? Where can everybody find you at?
Yeah, thanks so much for listening, everyone. For me, it's going to be Instagram. It's BTTR Lifestyle. That stands for Better Than the Rest. It's a fun acronym. And the same thing for my YouTube channel. It's The Better Lifestyle. And once again, that's BTTR Lifestyle.
Sweet. Thanks, guys. And then this is Coach Alex as well with Ignite Fitness. You can find Ignite Fitness in general on Instagram. It's probably the best way to check us out. It would be at Ignite Fitness _. Oh, shit, man. It's at, what is it again? Ignite Fitness _training. I almost lost it there. Ignite Fitness _training. You can find me on there, Alex _Gage. But yeah, check us out, guys. We're really glad you guys were able to listen in, and thank you, coaches, for doing it. If this episode hit home, share it, leave us a review, shoot us your biggest takeaway, and we're here to help you fuel smarter and live stronger. So until next time, you guys stay fueled, stay fierce, rise stronger, ignite brighter. So thank you guys for listening in. Appreciate it.